Arthur Finch was a fixture in the municipal library, as quiet and unassuming as the dusty tomes he meticulously reshelved. He wore the same worn tweed jacket, the same faded corduroys, and his movements were slow, deliberate, like a clock winding down. Most of the younger staff, bustling with their tablets and digital archives, barely noticed him beyond a polite, perfunctory nod. They saw an old man, a volunteer, perhaps a little out of touch, a gentle ghost among the living. His corner, tucked away near the local history section, smelled faintly of old paper and quiet solitude. Today, however, the library buzzed with an unusual energy. It was the annual Heritage Fair, a showcase of local history projects. Students from the nearby university, aspiring historians, dominated the main hall with sleek digital displays and polished presentations. Among them, a group led by the ambitious and self-assured Liam Thorne stood out. Their exhibit, The Great Flood of '78, a municipal response, was visually striking, filled with charts, official photographs, and grand pronouncements about civic resilience. Liam, with his sharp suit and even sharper wit, held court, dismissing any questions about individual narratives as anecdotal and irrelevant to the broader historical context. Arthur, meanwhile, sat at his small table, surrounded by stacks of yellowed newspaper clippings and brittle photographs, all pertaining to the very same flood. His display was simple: a handwritten timeline, a few faded maps, and a collection of personal testimonies he'd painstakingly transcribed from old interviews. As Liam's booming voice carried across the hall, ridiculing a rival's exhibit for its sentimental focus on forgotten individuals, Arthur's hand paused over a particular clipping, his knuckles white. He didn't look up, but a subtle tremor ran through his shoulders. The judging panel, led by the esteemed Dr. Eleanor Vance, approached Liam's exhibit. Liam launched into his rehearsed speech, eloquent and confident. "Our research demonstrates the effectiveness of coordinated municipal action," he declared, gesturing to a large graph. Dr. Vance, a woman known for her keen eye and even keener intellect, nodded politely. "Impressive data, Mr. Thorne. But tell me, your presentation touches little on the human element. Were there no unsung heroes, no individual acts of extraordinary bravery that perhaps slipped through the official records?" Liam chuckled, a dismissive sound. "Dr. Vance, with all due respect, our focus is on macro-history. The chaos of such an event makes individual narratives unreliable, often embellished. Those details, while perhaps emotionally resonant, are largely lost to time and, frankly, less significant for historical analysis." He glanced over at Arthur's humble table, a faint smirk playing on his lips, before turning back to the judges. Just then, a hush fell over the crowd. General Marcus Thorne, a towering figure in local philanthropy and a decorated veteran, entered the hall. He wasn't scheduled to attend, but his presence commanded instant respect. He moved with a quiet dignity, his eyes scanning the room, not for the flashiest displays, but for something else entirely. His gaze landed on Arthur's small, unassuming corner. General Thorne approached, his footsteps soft on the polished floor. He stopped directly behind Arthur, who was still hunched over his clippings. "Arthur," the general said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the polite murmurs of the hall. Arthur slowly straightened, his eyes, usually distant, now held a flicker of recognition. General Thorne turned to the assembled judges and Liam's stunned group. "Dr. Vance," he began, his voice carrying surprising authority, "I couldn't help but overhear your excellent question regarding the human element of the '78 flood, and Mr. Thorne's rather academic dismissal of it." He paused, his gaze sweeping over Liam, who suddenly looked very small. "Perhaps I can offer a different perspective." He then placed a hand gently on Arthur's shoulder. Arthur Finch, here, was not a lost detail. He was the heart of that human element. While official channels struggled to organize, Arthur, then a young man barely out of his teens, commandeered a small fishing boat. For 3 days and 2 nights, without sleep, without recognition, he navigated the treacherous, debris-filled waters. He pulled over 30 people from their flooded homes, from rooftops, from clinging to trees. My own family, trapped on the 2nd floor of our house, was among them. My mother, my younger sister, barely 6 years old, would not be here today if not for Arthur's quiet, relentless courage. Liam's face, moments ago so confident, drained of all color. His team shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the general, Arthur, and their now hollow exhibit. Dr. Vance looked at Arthur with an expression of profound awe. General Thorne reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, tarnished silver locket. He opened it, revealing a faded, crinkled photograph of a young woman and a small child. "This is my mother and sister, taken shortly after the flood," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Arthur brought them to safety. He never asked for thanks. He never spoke of it." The official reports of the time were too busy praising the coordinated efforts to acknowledge the true, individual heroes who risked everything. He looked directly at Liam. "Some stories, Mr. Thorne, are not lost to time. They are simply carried, quietly, by the very people who live them." A reverent silence descended upon the hall. The polished veneer of Liam's exhibit seemed to crack, revealing its superficiality. People began to turn, not to the grand displays, but to the quiet, unassuming man in the tweed jacket. Arthur, for his part, simply looked down at his clippings, a faint blush creeping up his neck. He didn't seek their gaze, didn't bask in the sudden attention. Later that afternoon, as the fair began to wind down, Liam Thorne approached Arthur's table. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by a profound humility. "Mr. Finch," he stammered, I had no idea. My research was incomplete." Arthur finally looked at him, his eyes kind but weary. "History is not just about what is written, young man," he said softly. "It's about what is remembered and what is carried." The following week, a new, small plaque appeared in the library's local history section. It wasn't large or flashy, just a simple brass plate affixed to the wall next to Arthur's quiet desk. It read, "Arthur Finch, Archivist of Resilience. Dedicated to the unspoken heroes of our community." Arthur still came in every day, still reshelved books, still organized clippings. But now, when people passed his corner, they didn't just see an old man. They saw the living embodiment of a powerful, untold story, a silent testament to the extraordinary courage that often hides in plain sight.